Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy alongside Connor Gray this evening. And Connor, it is a special time here. It is day one of the NCAA Tournament. It is officially March Madness. It is a great time. We have our first game, the first four, starting today. We have Texas A&M, Corpus Christi. I honestly had to check behind me because here's the thing. It does not matter who is playing right now. All that matters is that there are games being played. There's a sellout crowd in Dayton. Even if there isn't a sellout crowd, I'm going to act like there is anyway. That is the excitement I have for the tournament this year. We have so many fun storylines to break down this evening, make our predictions as well. It is going to be a fun time. We also have the NIT going on. Missouri State playing in Norman right now against the Sooners. Interesting game going on there. But Connor, as I turn it over to you, welcome to the show.
It's great. It's a great day. I gotta tell you, beginning of the end of the college basketball season, lining up with probably the best tournament in sports.
I mean, it really is. It is a great time for sports fans, and the best thing is just to get right into it as we get our fancy schmancy in quotation marks, because it's not really that fancy. But hey, it's new for us, and that's the important thing. But as we can see already, Texas A&M Corpus Christi up 55-51 over Texas Southern. We're going to be kind of keeping an eye on this game as we go on throughout the day, obviously being the first of the NCAA tournament games. And where do we begin, I guess, is the best part. We've talked about our brackets a little bit. I know Andrew and I did on our Selection Sunday special that this is an intriguing bracket. It really is. There's not a whole lot that you don't know at this point. We've heard the same storylines be beaten to death somehow in only 3 days.
Yep.
That is how this works. But as we look at the bracket for the first time on this show today, unfortunately, we cannot zoom in. As much as I would love to zoom in, I was trying to before the show, and the ESPN nearly crashed on us. I would love to zoom in, but unfortunately, we cannot. Nope. Looking here, the tournament challenge, so we can update our brackets live as we go on, or go along here. We're going to be predicting every single game of the first round of the tourney today, and I'm excited for it. I really am. So, where do we want to begin, Connor? I'll let you go first because I've kind of given my spiel before. Which quadrant do we want to start with? Do we want to start in West, South, Midwest, or East?
Let's start with the West.
All righty, just start up at the top.
Yeah.
So, obviously, our first game on the docket, Gonzaga taking on Georgia State. Gonzaga, you know who they are at this point. You have the number one overall team once again. You add Chet Holmgren to it alongside Drew Timme. Just absolutely dominant players. Gonzaga doing what they do. They're 26-3. But this is a Georgia State team that, they're not just some no-name. They have history being good in this tournament. They've had big upsets before. I mean,
especially the biggest one for Georgia State was about, I think it was 2015, 2016 when they upset Baylor.
Yeah, so that was the memorable one with R.J. Hunter hitting the buzzer beater. Mike and Perkins, don't go to Vegas with our predictions. You know how I am. I will say one thing and the opposite will happen. That is a horrendous idea. I will say some stuff and then knowing me, I would pick Gonzaga to beat Georgia State and then we get a UMBC part 2. I've seen that happen before. And I would not be surprised if it happened again one day. I mean, everyone will be wrong. 97% of the country will be wrong if that happens, but it would make me look bad. And that is important to me and me only. There we go. It took long enough.
Yeah, but as great as Georgia State has had their bit of runs in this tournament, I think we know what will happen. Gonzaga will pretty much take care of business. It could be a close one in the first half, maybe, but I think in the end Gonzaga will just outplay them. So not really much to really talk about that. So
yeah, I mean it's a 116. There's not a whole lot to talk about in it. It's just one of those games where you look at it and you've got to make a prediction.
Yeah,
that's just kind of how I view that. But moving on to the next one, this is where things already get interesting. You have Boise State and Memphis is an 8-9 game. Boise State out of the Mountain West, Memphis out of the AAC. Both these teams have had some interesting games this year. Boise State a 27-7 record. No one really talking about them being a mid-major in the Mountain West, but Memphis is a team that has caught fire right now.
Scroll back up. Just kind of want to look at based on their
look at stats.
On their stats. Overall, on stats wise, Memphis just looks like the better team outright. I mean, they lead in a lot of categories, and they have they're 3-1 against top 25 teams, while as Boise State is 0-1. Obviously, Boise State did much better conference wise than Memphis, but Memphis has a tougher conference than Boise State has, but Memphis outscores Boise State by at least by 7 to 8 points, and but it looks like to be a solid matchup. You can easily see upset potential right here in regards to what will happen with Memphis and Boise State, but I think I'm going to be real here. I think Memphis is a better team. Overall, I think they've been playing much better down the stretch than what they did at the start of the season and even into conference play. So, personally, I think Memphis will probably win this one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that Memphis is playing their best ball at the right time, which is right now.
Yeah.
You have to be hot going into March. We've seen it with teams before. I think the other thing to mention is Memphis started the year 9-8. Since then, they've been 12-2. Ever since their COVID pause and getting into conference play, they've been able to get big wins. They had just an interesting time. I mean, you look at teams they've played. Murray State was a 2-point loss. They beat Alabama by 14. They beat Virginia Tech by 8. They beat Houston twice, which is important to mention there. Houston, one of the better teams that a lot of people think can make some noise in this tournament. They have the win over St. Louis. They do have the loss to Iowa State, but that Iowa State team was a bit different in the non-conference than they were in Big 12 play.
Yeah.
So I agree. I've been picking Memphis in most of my brackets, and I wholeheartily agree with putting them in right there.
I think I only have one bracket where I picked Boise State. Otherwise, it was just to be just pick them in case, but otherwise, it's like Memphis is the go-to team.
Yeah, I mean, that is the one team I would think about. Moving on to our next one here, our first 5-12 to pick, UConn and New Mexico State.
I would say, before we talk about this, I think that this one and the next game we'll talk about are where a lot of upsets can happen. This is kind of like the seeds you don't want to be at times. I mean, I know the 4 a little better, but otherwise 5, that's a really dangerous one because we've seen 5 seeds get upset quite a bit in this tournament.
Yeah, 5-12 has become the popular upset combination if you're looking for someone. And this New Mexico State team can do it. They've got a good enough defense. You look stats-wise, both offense and defense, they're similar enough to the Huskies. But you look at that BPI differential, UConn at 17, New Mexico State at 117. Records look similar. That favors the Aggies. But looking at some of the notable results of the two teams, New Mexico State not really playing a whole lot of notable games. That's what happens when you're in the WAC.
Yeah, and also just the way their schedule, obviously the way they handle their non-con and also the conference they're in doesn't really help them in a lot of cases. But it's like this is a solid New Mexico State team, but don't expect much from exactly from them in a lot of ways because you're surprised how UConn can be. Like, UConn's a really good basketball. I've always been a great basketball program. New Mexico State, this is obviously a team you'd want to favor Connecticut. I think, in a bracket of mine where I had New Mexico State upsetting them out of nowhere, which is a possibility of happening, but I'm probably going to go with UConn beating New Mexico State.
All right. I've got UConn as well. I think the Aggies will give them a fight. I mean, you've got Teddy Allen and Sir'Jabari Rice, which is just a fun guard duo to watch. And I think UConn will be able at some point to contain them. UConn's not the best shooting team in the world, but their defense, I think, will carry them in this.
Yeah,
one.
I think their defense will stop New Mexico State from really doing much damage.
And moving on to the next one. This one I saw as another trendy upset pick, Arkansas and Vermont. These two teams both have not a history against each other, but they do have history in this tournament. Vermont, every year I see Vermont as this trendy upset pick to beat someone, And every year it feels like they get so close but can never get it done. Arkansas is the opposite. Ever since hiring Eric Musselman, the tradition of Arkansas basketball that most of us know, especially the old Nolan Richardson era Hogs, they've been back to that. Arkansas has been a phenomenal team the past few years, and despite the slow start this year, the Razorbacks are getting back to where people thought they would be this year.
Yeah, Arkansas been a fun team to kind of keep an eye on every now and then in regards to how they've been playing most of the year. Exciting group of guys. They've gotten some big wins. I mean, they were able to beat Auburn when they were number 1, and they were able to do a lot of they just had a really great season. I still probably would think if they didn't lose probably a couple of different games, they probably would easily be like a 2 or 3 seed. But I can understand why people might want to be like, oh, this is a trendy upset pick. It's like, I personally just don't see it. Like, Vermont's not a bad team, but I think Arkansas will take care of business.
The thing I have with Vermont, and this is not really a knock against them, but it's what's going to end up costing them, in my opinion, is that their lack of athleticism. When you go up against a bigger team like Arkansas, they're going to be able to out-athlete you. I know Vermont has a great defense. They only give up 60 points a game. But at the same time, they have not seen someone as big like Arkansas.
No.
They have not seen anyone like that this year. And so, as much as Vermont has some good games, some great wins, and some quality losses, especially the 10-point loss at Providence, I just don't think the Catamounts can get it done. It'll be another fun one where it's close, but I do not think Arkansas will lose this one.
No. Then, obviously, going down to we still have that playing game. We still don't know how.
Moving on to the next game, this one is ridiculously hard to predict because it's very hard to predict a game where you don't know who is even playing in it. You have Alabama, who we know is going to be playing. They're the 6th seed, and they will get the winner of Rutgers versus Notre Dame tomorrow. So I want to give you kind of the opportunity. I know I can speak for Andrew on this one because it's something we've talked about forever. If Alabama plays Rutgers or Alabama plays Notre Dame, does that make a difference in your mind on who wins this game?
I think the way people have talked about Rutgers being like some believe they shouldn't even be in a play-in game. They should already be in the first round. I feel like they've been especially the way they've been playing. I'm just basing off what it's been said by ESPN, other analysts on other shows. But for me, I don't know as much about Rutgers or I just know Notre Dame's not as good of a basketball team as I've seen in the past. But I feel like in regards to what I've been hearing, also a little bit of what I've been able to see of Rutgers, I think if Rutgers plays Alabama, don't be surprised for an upset. Heck, I already was like, this was actually my first upset in regards to the first round. Obviously, that play-in game needs to happen, but I'm already going to have Rutgers win the play-in and then beat Alabama.
All right. See, I am of the opinion that no matter who wins this play-in game, whether it be Rutgers or Notre Dame, my mind is already made up. I think Rutgers will beat Alabama, and I think Notre Dame can beat Alabama. I think both of those teams match up against the Crimson Tide. Alabama's such an inconsistent team this year in general that I think Alabama could make a run. It would not surprise me at all to see the Crimson Tide go on a big run, but I just don't think it's in the cards for them this year.
Alabama has, in many ways, for some people, believe they've kind of underperformed
this
season. So it's pretty much one of these things where I do think it matters just a little bit. I think Alabama would just edge by Notre Dame, but I think Rutgers are going to beat them.
I mean, just considering the way Alabama's season started, you have the wins over Gonzaga and all that, to where they are now is just a complete drop-off from where everyone thought that. The expectations start all the way up here with top 5 team,
yep,
and you slide and you fall out of the top 25, and now you're still a top 30, 40 team, but you can't be a top 30, 40 team and win March Madness.
Oh, yeah.
You absolutely have to. I mean, I guess you can if you play like the number 1 team in the country for 5 games, but it does not bode well, I guess is the best thing to say.
No.
So I personally have the winner of Rutgers Notre Dame beating Alabama. Moving on to the next game, Texas Tech taking on Montana State. This is going to be an intriguing matchup in the fact that not a lot of people have heard anything about Montana State, the Bobcats this year, coming out of the Big Sky. But being Big 12 guys, we know a little bit more about Texas Tech. And Texas Tech, well, we can tell you, they're gonna make this a defensive game.
Oh,
They have no problem turning this into a battle. But Montana State is a bit different in that they've got a good offense. They've got a good enough offense to compete here.
From what, obviously, compared to their points per game versus Tech, they obviously have more offensive weapons in regards to how they play, but they also give up quite a bit more points than what Tech gives up. Tech gives up about around 60, which is probably, I would say, an average for any Big 12 team, or probably slightly lower than that. But Tech's always had a great defense. A lot of their games have been really close, tight games, not a lot of scoring. But Montana State, really good with scoring, pretty much. But I think this plays into Tech's favor in a lot of ways, because if you can prevent, I believe with Montana State, if Tech can prevent them from really scoring at all, Tech's going to win this game. And sometimes Tech will get on fire, and they'll have guys that will just score. Because Tech's done it. They've killed teams when they get on fire, but a lot of time it's a really tough defensive game.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be intriguing to see. I think Bryson Williams is going to be the main key again for Texas Tech. If he goes off like we've seen him do this year, it'll be a long night for whoever plays the Red Raiders. But I think the other thing for Montana State is this is a really good shooting team. If Montana State can get in a rhythm, Texas Tech can go on droughts. We've seen this firsthand. Literally, Texas Tech's game against Oklahoma. They go on an 8.5-minute drought. You let Oklahoma right back into the game. If they go on anything near that level, it could be a long day for them.
Yeah, that's what happened with Oklahoma State.
That happens anytime Tech leaves Lubbock, to be honest.
The thing is, they've only lost. Obviously, they didn't lose a single game at home. So obviously, all your losses were on the road.
Yeah, road or neutral site.
And some of that, most of those, about half of those games were really good games with Tech, but then others were Tech could not score very much at all. But I just don't see that happening with this one. I think Tech gets it done.
I agree. I think Texas Tech is able to lock this one up and have a pretty good-looking shot at a Sweet 16.
But if, in regards to what we said with Tech, the problem with them away from, and also how sometimes they just do not score well on offense, don't be surprised if all of a sudden they just don't play as well and might end up dropping that game out of nowhere. That's a good upset pick, in my opinion, but that has to rely on Tech not knowing how to shoot and Montana just going on a roll.
Hey, you got me faked out on the camera there, so good job on that. I don't know if you were intending to do that, but you faked me out, so good job on that one.
Great job.
But moving on to the next one, this is another common one that I've heard a lot of talk about already. Michigan State, Davidson, 7-10 matchup. Winner possibly gets Duke. They'll get the winner of Duke and Cal State Fullerton. This will be a fun battle. Davidson not playing far from home, game in Greenville, South Carolina. Michigan State not as good as we're used to seeing from Tom Izzo's squads, but this is still a good Michigan State team.
It's a solid team, but nothing that's going to wow you by any stretch of the imagination, because it's just not the teams you're used to where they're always top 10 caliber, 1 or 2 seed, beating up everybody, usually going pretty far in the tournament. But obviously, much different team. But this is a team that can still beat you and still give you some trouble. But Davidson's been a really solid team all year, and a team you got to look out for. You do not underestimate them just because they're a mid-tier team.
Yeah, I mean, just because we've learned this lesson before, and by we, I mean every college basketball fan. You have learned there are certain mid-majors that you hear their name and you instantly think of, oh, that's a scary team. Even if they haven't had their big run in years, you still think of, oh, yeah, I remember them. No, yeah, I'm gonna pick them as an upset here. Yeah. So I've seen this one as a trendy upset pick as well, and it makes sense. This is one of Davidson's best teams. Probably you could make an argument the best one since the Steph Curry team that they had that made the big run a long, long time ago. It feels like, that's how you know you're getting old, when 2008 is a long, long time ago.
But even since then, Davidson has made the tournament a few times, but obviously they never made it probably as far as the second round. But still, it's like that's a team you got to be afraid of, especially they're always coming in on the lower lower end of the seeds and always just manage to do something. So always a team to look out for. But in regards to this is pretty much a solid, even matchup. I understand Michigan State's dealt with a lot tougher opponents, and obviously BPI favors Michigan State. But I'm gonna. This was in probably my second proper upset. I have Davidson winning this one.
See, I do not. I think Davidson will give them a game. I think it'll be a tough game. It will come down to the wire, but I think Michigan State just finds some way to win this one. Personally, I think it's going to be a fun game for sure. Don't get me wrong, but I just do not think Michigan State will lose this one.
Yeah, I disagree. I think Davidson will run it up on them near the end.
Yeah, well, that's the fun part about this is we'll get to see in a few days.
I love how when we're picking this, it's basically whoever you pick goes on there.
Yes, this is my final prediction I'm making for the entire year. I'll put the bracket out on ESPN. You can actually play in our bracket group. We do have the Guys Who Stare at Stats bracket group I created earlier today. So if you want to join that on ESPN, it is free to the public. If you just search fans of TGWSS, because they only give us 25 characters for some reason, you can join that today. That's once again fans of TGWSS. I've already put all my brackets in there. You'll probably wonder, Cade, why did you make 22 brackets? Because it's March. That's why I did that. Also, I was bored. That helps too. But moving on to the next game, Duke and Cal State Fullerton. This is another intriguing one. Cal State Fullerton coming out of the Big West. Not a lot of people talk about the Titans when it comes to basketball. They're more known for their baseball.
Yeah, baseball, they're really good.
Duke, of course, this is Coach K's final year. You have heard about it all season long. And this is a Duke team that some people have mixed opinions on. Some people think this is the next great Duke team. Paolo Banchero has been great. This is an interesting team. Wendell Moore Jr. has been playing great for the Blue Devils. But some people do not trust this Duke team. They don't trust them as far as they can throw them, to be honest. And so I kind of want to get your opinion on this one.
Well, Duke is they've had most of the season they've played really well, but then they just have games where it's like, what's going on? Why are you losing to this team? So it's like they've had some weird games, and then they've probably had some games were not the most convincing of wins, but it's like they're where they are for a reason. They're Duke. It's Coach K. But I'm not going to I don't know hardly anything about the Fullerton, but it's like I'm picking Duke to win. It kind of, for me, it's more of a no-brainer, though they have lost to a 15 seed before. Lamar, I think it was Lamar can attest to that.
Right, that was a C.J. McCollum Lehigh team that upset them. Yeah, I mean there are too many L schools.
Yeah, I mean
words are hard. I will give you that. Words are hard.
Well, it's also kind of like you just don't think about some of these schools.
You remember the moment. You don't remember the jersey.
No,
you remember the moment and being like, "Well, good job, Duke. Proud of you. You lost to who is this C.J. McCollum?" And then you see him in the NBA. It's like, oh, there he is. I guess he was good. But yeah, we're both in agreement here. Not a whole lot to talk about on this one. Duke gets the win there. Moving over to the South, we have another matchup that is impacted by the first four, a game going on once again tomorrow. I don't think we need to speculate on this one too much.
It's Arizona.
Unless you're picking the upset of the century here.
It's Arizona.
Yeah, it's Arizona. Congrats to Wright, Stater, Bryant, whoever gets the Wildcats. It's not going to be a fun time. Even though Bryant has has the best scorer in college basketball, it's not enough. It's not enough.
It's like if
they had five of them, maybe.
If at least I'd say at least three of them they play defense, then you can say that. But all right, then
moving on to the next 8-9, Seton Hall and TCU.
These teams are so similar.
These two are extremely similar. The only thing is TCU is a bit worse on offense and slightly better on defense. Seton Hall slightly better on offense, slightly worse on defense, but just barely.
Barely. It's like this one is another one of those matchups that can go either way, so it's always a game that people look at. But this one I was a little more torn on my bracket in regards to let's see, hold on to get there, of who I wanted to choose. Seton Hall, always in the Big East, solid team. Usually they usually make the tournament every so often. TCU, this is kind of not the most familiar ground with them since they don't really make the tournament as not even close as often as Seton Hall has had in years. But TCU, we obviously OSU has played them. TCU really good, pretty good, solid team. I thought they were much better early on around the midway point than they were kind of going down the stretch. But I think it's like this one was so hard because it's like both are really good teams. But for me, from my familiarity with TCU, I picked them, even though I probably was thinking about picking Seton Hall.
Yeah, it's one of those that both these teams are similar. TCU relies on their defense, I guess you could say, a little bit more than Seton Hall does. Seton Hall relies on their offense a little bit more. Seton Hall, a great offensive rebounding team as well. But
if you can
Seton Hall's weird thing is that they can get in foul trouble. They will send you to the line, and that's where TCU has to take advantage, and I think the Frogs can do it. So I have TCU winning this one, but just barely.
Yeah, it's not going to
TCU's not, I don't think, spoiler alert, their lack of three-point shooting is going to hurt them in the long run, especially considering if they win, a certain number one seed's waiting for them.
Basically, they have to roll. Basically, if that happens, they'd have to rely on Arizona basically to forget how to shoot.
I mean, that can't happen.
I mean, TCU can play great defense, which we've seen them play, but it's also like one of those where TCU's got to play like the best defense they've ever played, and they got to hope Arizona cannot hit the three-point shot. Otherwise, they're going to be in for a long day.
That is true. But moving on to our next one here, Houston and UAB. This one, another 5-12, not as popular of an upset pick. I've seen it gaining traction today. I've seen more and more people saying, look out for UAB. Houston is kind of wounded, even though they've been dealing with those injuries for a while.
I'm one of those people who I think on both of my brackets, though I don't think it was probably the wise decision. I just went, you know what? Hail Mary, because it can happen. I picked UAB to win this one because it was like, it feel like this was more of a trendy pick because I get Houston, great basketball team. Let's be real. OSU played them, and Houston was really good when we played them. But it was just one Houston, like, obviously I think if this gets dragged out down to the wire, I think Houston could probably pull away with this one. But UAB, obviously seeing how the points per game, they score quite a bit. They've played against San Francisco, who's also in this tournament, who is really good in their own right. But UAB, it just seemed like a more of a trendy pick to do, even though I more than likely probably wouldn't have picked UAB. But I feel like, you know what? I think this will probably be the one of the first upsets in the tournament. So I picked them.
Well, I do not agree. I think that Houston is good enough defensively to shut UAB down. It will be a challenge to get done, but UAB is a bit smaller of a team compared to some of the other ones, which you expect from some mid-majors, especially coming out of the Conference USA. And Houston's team, despite the injuries, I still think they're elite enough to hold their own in even a weird, testy 5-12 matchup. So I like the Cougars in this one with that frightening defense they have, holding opponents to 58 points a game.
I'm not the most sold on Houston's defense, even though they've played really well. They've had some of the games I've seen, their defense has not been as great. Plus, they're still dealing with some injuries, but I don't think it's going to heavily affect them in some aspects. But I think UAB will just outplay them.
Yeah, and I can see that. I trust them a little bit more than UAB as well.
No, I understand that, but because you're a bit more familiarity with Houston.
Yeah, but moving on to the next one, which should be another fun one in the 4-13. Illinois taking on Chattanooga, the Mocs. I just love saying that. Mocs. What other team has that name? The answer is no one. No one has that name. No one is the Mocs except Chattanooga, and they have to go up against a intriguing Illini team. They had Kofi Coburn back, one of the all Big Ten players, one of the, I believe, the AP first team they announced today, or AP All-Americans. Kofi Coburn was up there. Big Ten had 3 players at the top 5, so that's always impressive for any conference to have multiple players, let alone 3.
Yeah.
I mean, Trent Frazier, Alfonso Plummer, this is just a intriguing Illinois squad that I've been high on them all year personally. I don't know about you, but Chattanooga will have a shot in this game. They are an intriguing team. They've got the SoCon Player of the Year in Malachi Smith. He averages 20 points a game, 7 rebounds, and it'll be a difficult matchup for the Illini, but I think that they can get the job done. You look at what Illinois has been able to do. They can win these big games. Have they had some questionable moments before? Absolutely,
yeah.
but I don't think that will bother them today.
Well, they play in the Big Ten, and that just occasionally happens.
That is
them.
true.
But in Illinois, for the most part of the year, has played really, really well. But as much as I would love to see this upset with in regards to Chattanooga getting a big one on Illinois, it's not going to happen. I think the Illini are going to be too much, especially since getting one of their star players back. They'll definitely make a solid run.
So let's add Illinois to the list here. Moving on to the next one, the first game of the entire tournament, or technically not, first game of the opening round, 11:15 a.m. There's actually a fun story that goes with this. Yesterday, kind of going into today, Colorado State was not informed of where their plane was. The NCAA is supposed to give teams that make the tournament a charter plane, and they just straight up did not notify. They forgot to call Colorado State. They told Michigan, because Michigan's not as far. Ann Arbor to Indianapolis is not that big of a drive. But they forgot to tell Colorado State where their plane was, and they were the first game of the tournament. They nearly wrecked their entire – I think it got fixed now, thankfully. I think they got it fixed like an hour after I saw the tweet. But just the incompetency of – oh, by the way, we forgot your plane. Okay, let's go find it real quick. Here's your plane you're using to get out of Fort Collins to Indianapolis.
The funniest part is if it turned out to be a plane that's basically almost falling apart.
If it's one of those situations, I just think of, especially being here in Northwest Oklahoma, the old high school thing where it's like, oh, sorry, we're running late. Can you delay the game like 30 minutes? Like, can you just all hold up for, like, imagine they just can't find their, like, hey, where are you guys at? The game starts in 20 minutes. Oh, we're still in Fort Collins. We're trying to find our plane. We don't know where it is. They're like, oh, gosh, this is the first game. And I think that kind of sets the tone for the tournament this year. If we're already at trying to find planes in the pregame to the NCAA tournament, we're off to a great start.
It's more comedic than anything, to be honest. But obviously, like, being real here, a little serious here, very similar on paper in a lot of ways, though it seems like Colorado State has a better defense if you just look at their opposing points per game. But obviously Michigan's played much tougher opponents, 2-7 against top 25. They have a BPI of 28, but I'd say Colorado State has a respectable 81. It's better than most other teams in this tournament. And obviously had a better conference record overall. But it's one of these things where it's like, you could easily pick Michigan to win this one because they're more battle-tested, but you also could pick Colorado State because they seem to be playing a little better basketball overall. But obviously, I haven't seen much of Colorado State, but I've seen a bit of Michigan, but not necessarily good things with Michigan. So, but I think on my bracket, I picked Colorado State.
This is an interesting one. We've talked about trendy upset picks before. I've never seen, and we'll get to the other one, I've never seen a trendy upset pick where Vegas is favoring the underdog just right out of the gate with a line that keeps going up and up and up. Michigan's the favorite in this game, actually, which is impressive to say the least for the 11-6. Until I saw a stat earlier that since, I believe in the last 13 years, the 11 seed has a winning record against the 6 seed.
That's not surprising.
This is usually one of the this has become a toss-up matchup, basically, in the NCAA tournament, and it would not surprise me to see either way. This is one of the ones I had a tougher time picking. But I just think Colorado State, their slower pace of play, there's one thing I always say about these slower pace of play teams. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. I just cannot trust them. I cannot trust them. I can trust them to get a big upset maybe, but I cannot trust them to make a deep run. I think against a Michigan team that is so erratic, they go up and down and up and down. We've seen their highs, we've seen their lows. I think Michigan will come out with a little bit of fire, coming out, Juwan Howard back now as your head coach, helping fire this team up. I think this Michigan team comes out hot and gets a big upset win.
Yeah, I don't really see that. they got bounced pretty quickly in the Big Ten tournament. So
they did, and I think that kind of goes with Michigan's win-loss random pattern that they seem to have this year.
yeah,
And plus, they can play the whole "no one wanted us to be in here" with a 17-14 record. I'm sure, just like me, you saw all the criticism of why is Michigan even in the tournament to begin with.
yeah. Well, I could say why they ran it is because they played really tough teams and got the necessary upsets they needed. But it's just one of those things where it's like I can understand people's arguments, but I would have put them in probably maybe as a 12 seed, but I wouldn't have put them any higher or lower.
I mean, it's one of those interesting. I did see a lot of that where you look at Texas A&M's resume, you look at Michigan's, you look at Rutgers, Oklahoma, Dayton, SMU, all these teams. The whole battle at the end basically was really intriguing to see. And while we're on the topic of intriguing, I do want to let you know, 34 seconds left in the game. Texas Southern up 73-66 over A&M Corpus Christi. It looks like the Tigers will be moving on here. They're going to get the first win of the tournament and a big win for Texas Southern. They had big wins earlier this year. They beat Florida, for goodness sakes. I've never seen Texas Southern beat Florida before, and that was a big win for them earlier this year, and they've continued to improve from there. So as of right now, it looks like Texas Southern is going to get the big win there to get their first win of the tournament.
All right.
So yeah, good for the Tigers. Good to see them do well. But moving on to our next game, Tennessee and Longwood.
This one, I'm not going to really hardly even do a breakdown of it. Tennessee's going to win.
Vols.
Vols
by several points.
I think they'll probably win by like 23.
Yeah, I mean this is going to be kind of an exhibition, I think, by the end of it. And I mean, shout out to Longwood. They were a Division II team 15 years ago, and now here they are making their first ever appearance. The Lancers, just impressive to see what they were able to do, winning this year for the first time. Just such an incredible atmosphere they had at their games of what I was able to see. And I mean, congratulations to them. Unfortunately, I think their time in the dance is going to be short-lived. We're both in agreement Tennessee gets this one.
Yep.
But moving on to the next one, Ohio State and Loyola Chicago. This is another fun one. Anytime you get a 7-10, it's always intriguing to say the least. And these are two teams that are so similar on offense, they average the same amount of points per game at 73.8.
Yeah, but Chicago is more of seems to have more of a defensive mindset.
They are.
So this one, I think in many ways, obviously offensively they seem to be even, but defensively advantage goes to Loyola Chicago. But I've just, like with Ohio State, I have never looked at them as like a solid team. They obviously, it doesn't help you. You start out the year ranked, and then you proceed to just to mishap after mishap in regards to just how they've played. They haven't really been the best. Yeah, they have a 4-3 record against top 25 teams, but that still isn't really that much to impress me in regards to how they've played most of the year overall. I have Loyola Chicago pretty much whipping them.
I mean, I have Loyola Chicago winning this one as well. It's just Ohio State to me is the same as Michigan. They're just too up and down of a team for my liking. They have a really good ceiling, but they have a really bad floor. Mm-hmm. And so it is one of those that if they can get on a roll, would not surprise me in the slightest, but I just think the Ramblers are going to get the win.
And the other one you don't need to really pull it up. No,
we're gonna bring it up anyway just to give the Blue Hens their credit. It's Joe Flacco's school. We have to give him, even though that has nothing to do with anything. I just want to throw that fact out there. That Joe Flacco played at Delaware. I have no basketball facts about Delaware, so I just have to bring that up. I guess they have the Sixers minor league team, and we don't have Andrew to confirm that tonight, unfortunately. So. I'm at least last time I remember. But that's fun Delaware facts for you. Villanova's going to win this game by 30. Moving on to the next one. Moving on to the East. Baylor playing Norfolk State. I have been told this is the best Norfolk State team since the Kyle O'Quinn team. That's what I've read. That is what I've seen watching a little bit of their conference tournament.
Wow, for really being one of the best teams in a long time, they really got the short end of a stick of being the.
Yeah, I would say at least that Kyle O'Quinn team is at least a 15 seed. This one, congrats, you get to play Baylor in the first. You get to play the defending champion. Have fun. That is not a reward.
Like, Norfolk State, obviously, from what people have said, it's the best team they've had in a long time. But it's like you're still stuck playing arguably probably one of the best teams in the tournament. So you basically gotta rely on what Oklahoma State did to Baylor twice, but sadly it only worked once. Basically, Baylor forgetting how to shoot for almost an entire half, and basically keep making sure staying with them or even leading the game by quite a bit at one point. But it's like a lot of things has to go Norfolk's way for Baylor to lose this game, which it'd be hilarious if they did, but it'd also be for me. I'm like, well, there goes my bracket.
I mean, there goes everyone's bracket if that happens. That is.
But I still think Baylor will defensively will play better than Norfolk State, and I think offensively will just hit threes out of nowhere like it's no tomorrow, because they can do that. So pretty much Baylor probably win this one by maybe 15.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if that happened. Baylor's going to win this game. It's just a matter of how much. I do also want to bring attention to the fact we do have a final. Texas Southern has defeated A&M Corpus Christi 76-67. So Texas Southern does win their game. They will take on Kansas in the first round here, or opening round / second round / whatever you want to call it. It has been called so many names at this point, it does not matter. But I can tell you, though, is the North Carolina-Marquette's going to be an intriguing game. It's going to be a fun one. An 8-9, two teams that are similar. We know a little bit of Marquette, just of the name Shaka Smart. If that means anything to you, you know what you're going to get from that Marquette team. Streaky on offense, solid defensively. North Carolina, a bit of the same way. They've had a few games this year where they have played out of their mind. They were able to beat Duke and in Cameron, of all places, to end the year. North Carolina's had some good wins. Brady Mannix played well. Leaky Black's a name you'll hear a bunch. Caleb Love has hit some crazy shots this year. That's one thing I was reading from a North Carolina fan page. Caleb Love is going to hit some crazy bank shot you're not going to expect, and then he'll do it again and miss by 10 feet. That's just the player he is. He's going to keep shooting the ball. Whether you want him to or not, he's going to keep shooting. If he's in a rhythm, you're in trouble. If he's not, good luck. You have a good shot at winning this one.
Obviously, 8 and 9 seeds are always fun games to watch, but it's like obviously very similar on paper, though. Obviously, North Carolina a little better offensively. Marquette's always been one of those teams that you cannot underestimate them. They will always kill you. They could easily upset you in a variety of different ways, but I think North Carolina survives against Marquette in this one.
I just think the Tar Heels are too talented on offense. Marquette will make this a game, obviously, but North Carolina has just enough to get the game done. Moving on to the next one, this will be an intriguing one. St. Mary's taking on either Wyoming or Indiana. This is the game coming up next. We'll figure it out a little bit later tonight who the Gales play. And I think this one is a bit more dependent on who they play. I think if St. Mary's gets Indiana, there's more of a chance of an upset in this one. I think if they get Wyoming, there's a greater chance that the Gales get the win.
For me, I think it was like with what you said last in regards to obviously with whoever ends up playing the 6th seed, but I think this is a little different. I think no matter who the Gales get, I think the Gales get by regardless. I think while Wyoming had a solid year, and Indiana, not really great of a year they have liked, but I think in the end, the Gales get it done regardless of who they play.
And I think so, too. I think it's just that does play a bit more of a factor in
it does, but
in this one, but we're both in agreement that St. Mary's, with the way they've played this year, they should be able to, and we both think they will get the win. Moving on to the next one, UCLA taking on Akron. I've seen this one as a funny meme upset where people are just like, you just got zipped. And it was like, what did I just read? I don't know what in the world was going on. I've seen people pick this one as a joke, as like their one joke upset of like mainly just Ohio State fans wanting Akron to do well so the state does well is what I've seen. And I mean, whatever floats your boat, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that as funny as that is, to be honest, that's actually pretty funny, but I think it really doesn't matter regardless. I think UCLA is just going to be too overwhelming. UCLA has a lot of talent on that team. Akron, I think pretty solid for where the conference they play in, but it's not going to be enough.
Yeah, I mean, Akron will limit possessions. They will slow this game down. They'll play solid defense. And that's a good test for what's coming up for UCLA, especially considering who they have a good shot at playing if they beat Akron.
Yeah.
That's a good test for St. Mary's. But at the same time, I just don't see UCLA losing that game.
No.
Moving to the next one, wouldn't it be a shame that Texas has to play one of the hottest teams in America right now in Virginia Tech? Such a shame.
Such a shame.
But Texas, as we know, elite defensively, one of the best defenses in the country, taking on a Virginia Tech team, the ACC tournament champion. That is not a sentence I thought I would say last week, but here we are.
Yep. But
Virginia Tech playing their best basketball at the right time. You get the big wins over Duke and North Carolina to win the whole tournament. And, I mean, Kive Aluma is playing amazing right now for the Hokies. This is a Texas team that is kind of having the same thing happen to them that Colorado State is, where so many people are, oh, this is the momentum pick. We learned this last year from Oregon State. You pick the momentum team. That Virginia Tech right now, I believe, is currently favored to beat Texas, at least on ESPN. I'm not sure that Vegas agrees with that. But a lot of people, this is another one of them. And it's an upset pick so hard that they're now the favorite.
understandable. Virginia Tech's played, obviously, they won the tournament, so it's like they earn their shot easily. They're easily earn their shot into the being in the tournament. Texas is just a team is like head scratcher at times, where it's like, like the talent they have on that team, they easily should have had one of the best, at least a top 10 worthy record. Instead, they look like they barely even deserve to even get the 6th seed at all. But Texas still a solid team. We've obviously having to play them. Each of our teams had to play them twice because Big 12. But still, it's like Virginia Tech is just their momentum. Yes, is right in their way, but Texas doesn't have a good history in regards to being a first-round team. Nothing has really favored them at all every time they've been, and also their track record is not very good. So I have Virginia Tech getting the upset.
Yeah, this is another one of who do you trust more, Chris Beard teams or the University of Texas? And I think, unfortunately, the Texas kind of curse holds over the program again, and Virginia Tech gets the upset. And Virginia Tech carries momentum.
It's like Chris Beard teams outside of the Longhorns, yes. With them, no. I think that curse is going to be too much for them.
And the next game here, Purdue taking on Yale. One of the probably the best 3-14 game. I will go ahead and say that. I think this is the most fascinating one, at least on paper, and that we know what Purdue can do. We know what they can do with Jaden Ivey and Edie as well. Anytime you have a 7'4" center, that's just must-watch TV. Everyone loves seeing tall people. It's just a thing. It's I don't know if it scares us or if we're just fascinated by how tall they are.
I think it's a little bit of both.
I probably. What we know is both teams playing exactly the same on defense. They both give up 68.8 a game. They both like to score. Purdue a bit more than Yale. Yale being the Ivy League champion. There was no Ivy League team in the tournament last year. Due to COVID, the Ivy League just straight up did not have a season. So it's good to see an Ivy League team back in the tournament.
Yeah, most definitely.
When you look at Yale, obviously they don't have the most quality of anything in the world, losing to Auburn, St. Mary's, Seton Hall, and Vermont all by a lot, with the exception of that Vermont game. And the Boilermakers are one of the best offenses in the country, but it's Purdue. That is the other side of this. Purdue has found some of the most weird ways to lose in games under Matt Painter that I've ever seen. The loss to North Texas last year, losing to Little Rock, losing in the most heartbreaking way to Virginia that one time they actually made a decent run. Every time Purdue finds a way to lose in the most weird fashion possible. I do not think that happens this time. I think they do get past Yale, but Yale can do this. We've seen them do it before in big tournament games, and we've seen Purdue do the exact opposite. But I think the Boilermakers get the job done in this one.
Yeah, as fun as it would probably be to see Purdue lose in a horrid for a Purdue fan, horrid fashion. But if you're for anyone else, it's like, haha, you lost to Yale. But it's like Yale's a solid team. They won the Ivy League tournament, so that's nothing to really shame them on. But it's like, I just don't see Yale. Like, Yale can make it a close game, but I don't think Purdue will just be too much for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be one of those where Purdue's not going to roll them over immediately,
No.
and Yale's going to give them every shot they can. But I think the Boilermakers are just too much.
Yeah.
Moving to the next one. Quite possibly one of the weirder games to predict in this entire tournament. Not often we have a mid-major battle in the first round, but we do in this one with Murray State, who is 30-2, undefeated in conference play, top 25 team most of the year, borderline top 20 team if you go by the AP poll, taking on a San Francisco team that the advanced metrics just love. They love this Dons team. I like this Dons team, but I don't know how much I like them against the Racers.
Obviously, West Coast Conference was actually quite chaotic this year in regards to, obviously Gonzaga and the Gales are from the same conference as San Francisco, but still had other teams in that mix that were really solid. San Francisco put together enough of a resume to really keep themselves in it, but obviously Murray State just having an unbelievable season, going 30-2. That's really tough for any squad to even just all have less than 5 losses. That's really hard. But obviously, if you base it on records, Murray State would be the obvious favorite, especially since Murray State's been in the top 25 in regards to some of the other polls that they've been in. Obviously, they're very much the points per game. They're pretty similar. Though Murray State has a better defensive group than San Francisco does. Their BPIs are not that much different. As like Murray State, I think probably didn't have as much competition as what San Francisco has, but I've been riding high on Murray State the last couple of weeks, so I think Murray State pulls out a first-round win. As much as San Francisco is a really good team, I think Murray State gets it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Murray State will do just enough. I do want to make the announcement now that we've got more people coming in here. We do have our own bracket pool this year on ESPN. I did take the time to create that. If you want to click the link there in the chat below, that should take you to the Tournament Challenge website and get everything set up. Just search for fans of TGWSS. That's the guys who stare at stats. I would type the whole thing out, but we have a 25-character limit for some reason. And if you just click that little link right there, you should be able to create your own bracket. You'll go to group, click group, add group, search for fans of TGWSS. I can't even spell my own acronym right. But moving on to kind of, I guess, other opinions about this game. This is another one that, surprisingly for a 7-10, I've not seen a whole lot of people pulling the San Francisco upset, even though most of the advanced metrics people I know are like, San Francisco got one of the worst draws they statistically could have gotten.
Oh, yeah.
And, okay, San Francisco, sneaky upset team. Who'd they get? Murray State. Oh, that's not good. Well, you tried.
It's like if they were playing anyone else, yeah, I'd probably be picking San Francisco. But
I probably would,
it's
too.
Like Murray State is just like, that's the worst draw you could have if you're San Francisco.
Yeah, for being a 10 seed, that's one of the worst draws you could have. We both have the Racers winning this one. Moving on to the next one. We're not going to hold on to this one forever. Kentucky's playing St. Peter's. Congratulations to St. Peter's for taking Iona's traditional spot.
So long.
Yeah, you were able to not really beat Iona. You just kind of let them implode on themselves and walk past them to win the MAAC. So shout out to getting another New Jersey team in. So good for them. Proud of them. That's about all I can say about them. Good luck. You get Kentucky, you're going to lose. Unless they don't, in which case I will be stunned. Moving to the next one, Kansas taking on Texas Southern. We now know it's going to be the Tigers. And Kansas will have their way with them, but Texas Southern, just impressive to see them even here after, usually HBCUs are not the best basketball teams in the world just in terms of funding and everything else that goes into this.
Yeah.
But good to see them there. Kansas will, unfortunately for Texas Southern fans, they will roll them.
Yeah.
Kansas is going to do whatever they want to do. Dave McCormick might eat somebody. I don't know. Mitch Lightfoot's going to come in and drop 20 off the bench, and Kansas fans will lose their mind. I don't know. Something weird will happen.
So basically what normally happens.
I don't know about the Mitch Lightfoot part. That guy's as old as Perry Ellis, I think, at this point. He's Perry Ellis's younger. He's related to them in age, which that's Fair enough. Thing now.
Fair enough.
But Kansas will get the win. And the next one, this one fascinates me. San Diego State is the best defense in college basketball. They only give up 57.7 points per game. Statistically, the best defense in the entire NCAA. And they're taking on a Creighton team that is not an amazing offense. This is a younger Creighton team, but they've shown that they can play with anybody.
It's going to be one of those matchups where it's like, you never know what will actually happen. You never know if Creighton will probably have a good time offensively, or it'll be probably what they usually do a lot of time. But San Diego State's defense will be pretty good. Well, on my bracket, I had Creighton getting upsetting San Diego State and moving on to the second round. But I think probably looking back on it, I probably should have picked San Diego State, but I'll stick with Creighton on this one.
All right, and it's one of those, like, I didn't even know the San Diego State defense thing because you never see them anywhere except hidden on CBS Sports Network at 10 o'clock at night sometimes.
No one's going to watch that.
No one's going to watch that, but you will get to see them tomorrow, or not tomorrow. I don't know what day it is. It's spring break.
You'll see them.
You'll see them Thursday. You'll see them a day
a day
this week. But this is San Diego State team that I think can make some noise if they get the right matchup, and I think they got a good one with Creighton, and they have an intriguing one with Kansas. That will be a fun second-round game if those two get together. But next one, Iowa and Richmond. Richmond, kind of the same story as Virginia Tech. Team that catches fire in their conference tournament, makes a big run, upsets a really good Davidson team in the championship. But now they're playing Iowa, who is also red hot, and not to mention one of the best offenses in the country, averaging nearly 84 points per game. So a battle of two unique team names, the Hawkeyes and the Spiders. Never really see those two names together. This should be a fun offensive game.
Yeah, it'll be pretty high scoring for the most part. Obviously, points per game edges Iowa, but you never know how that will turn out. And Richmond could pull off one of the weird upsets of the tournament, but I think in the end Iowa will probably just be too much for the Spiders.
I think so too. Keegan Murray's just downright fantastic for the Hawkeyes, just averaging 23 points per game, one of the best scorers in America. Richmond does get 40 points a night nearly from their front court, and this is an intriguing team in terms of like assist to turnover rate. If you're interested in going into advanced stats, which some people are, some people aren't, ranks favorably against most teams in the tournament. But at the same time, I just don't think Richmond has it in them to get the win. So I've got Iowa in this one. Moving on to the next one, Providence and South Dakota State. Providence, statistically, the luckiest team in America when you look at all they've been able to do, or you can say they're one of the most clutch teams in America, depending on how you want to look at it, depending on who you ask. And they're running into the unknown South Dakota State team that averages 86.7 points per game, but gives up 73 a game. They're one of the best offenses, you could say the best offense potentially in the United States right now on the college level. They shoot 45% from three, making them the best three-point shooting team. But their defense is statistically one of the worst in the country. So they will make every game a shootout, whether it help them or hurt them. Also should be mentioned, South Dakota State has not lost a game in the year of 2022. They have won every game in January, every game in February, and so far, every game in March.
Fair enough to them. And Providence, make sure I remember, they got booted out of the first round, right?
Providence.
Or did they make it run with it?
They won. They beat Butler somehow, and then they got beat by Creighton because Creighton went on like a 31-2 run and just obliterated them.
I know I probably should have kept up with that, but I was told by a coworker of mine said that Providence got knocked out really quickly.
They did. They got beat extremely early.
Which, relative for their tournament, yes, it was quickly, but he made it sound like they got knocked out of the first, one game and done. And it was like, that doesn't sound like what Providence, but...
Well, it's the Big East tournament, so it's bigger, so it's like they're the quarterfinals.
Well, they have 14, 16 teams.
They have more teams, yeah.
So the way he talked about it was like...
Yeah.
I was confused, but otherwise, Providence is still a really solid team. They've only lost 5 games all year, so it's true. You can't really knock them on really much of anything. It's really tough to, like I said, to have less than have 5 or less losses.
That is true.
So, but San Diego State, really good, especially they've played really well so far. This is probably one of the ones where you could pick San Diego State to win, but that defense is just if their defense can step up or rely on Providence to implode on themselves, they have a shot at winning. But I think in the end, I think that their defense is going to hurt them enough where I think Providence can pull out a victory. But if you want to be the trendy upset, San Diego State just goes off on them.
Yeah,
I mean, South Dakota. I don't want to say San Diego.
Well, San Diego, 2 SDSUs in one side of the bracket is not fun for people with acronyms. But I think this will be an intriguing game. Another fun stat, Providence is 11-2 in games decided by 5 points or less. And I think South Dakota State's defense is going to be a problem. But I think this is getting – now, granted, I have been wrong about them before. But I think this is the year they finally – get the upset win. I think they're shooting at such a high enough level. The defense will hurt them, and this will become a shootout rather quickly. But I really do like South Dakota State in this upset.
Yeah, I think on one of the brackets I did pick San Diego State, but I just played it safe on that one.
Yeah.
So,
but next one, LSU and Iowa State, a.k.a. who wants to have an offense? That could be the name of this one. Both teams dealing with their own random problems. LSU no longer with their head coach, with Will Wade being fired for 6 level 1 NCAA violations. Don't talk about it. And Iowa State has the problem that they don't have an offense anymore. They have a good defense, though. Both these teams are really good defensively, only giving up 63 points a game. Both teams struggling down the stretch. Really evenly balanced matchup here in a 6-11. LSU is a younger team. Cyclones just kind of walking their way through the second half of the season, and it has showed.
Yeah, Iowa State's definitely not the same team they were when they entered conference play. Actually, the first half of conference play, they were one of the better teams in the conference, and then just slowly made their way, got booted out the top 25, and have been struggling to really have any form of identity on offense. There's been games they've won. They were lucky that their offense showed up in clutch moments, but then they've also just dealt with issues where they just outright lost games they probably could have easily won if they could just score a little. Oh, what are you looking at?
Oh, I was just getting ready to see the Indiana-Wyoming because we're officially in the tradition of games are running behind because the other game went way too long. So we're already delayed by at least 15 minutes in Dayton.
It doesn't help a lot. All these games are on the same channel.
It doesn't. Hey, this is True TV's big revenue day. Don't mess with them. They got to show Impractical Jokers reruns every other day of the week.
Well, it also doesn't help that basically this is the only time of year where that channel actually really makes any proper money.
Actually, I want to see. So we'll get to it in a moment. But I believe most years you can Google what channel is True TV, and it hits its peak today and tomorrow. Every single year.
It's today, tomorrow, and I think the first round, and then it goes back to where it was.
Yeah, but I just always find that funny that and no one knows about True TV except for one weekend. That's it. That's all you need to know it for. It's just when's my game on? Okay, never gonna watch this channel ever again. Thank you.
Exactly.
But this will be a fun game, I think, in a battle of. This honestly could be a first to 60 wins, and I wouldn't be surprised the way both these teams have played.
The score might be even lower than that.
Yeah, this would be one of those games where it's just golf. Okay, whoever scores less wins. We're going to have negative points scored, it feels like.
But I think on my brackets, I think on the ones I did do, I think I picked Iowa State to win every time.
Yeah, on this one, I've got LSU. I just have no trust in I have slightly more trust in LSU than Iowa State, but that's not a lot.
I don't trust LSU at all. So,
moving to the next one, Wisconsin and Colgate. This is another battle of tempos that is going to become apparent rather quickly. Wisconsin is going to slow this game down at all costs. That is what the Badgers do. That has been their MO for a very, very long time. Colgate is the exact opposite. They've won 19 of their last 20, and they win by playing fast and loose, and they're going to do anything they can to turn this into a shootout.
Well, you better hope you can keep Wisconsin on their toes. Otherwise, that game's going to stretch out for a long period of time.
Yeah, this game will be, I think, similar to the Arkansas-Colgate game we had, where it looks like a easy Colgate upset at the beginning. I saw a lot of people actually picking Colgate to win this one. This was by far the biggest upset chance of all the 3-14 games. And this is going to be weird to look at for a little bit. The first 10 minutes of the game, you're going to look at this and be like, what is happening? What is going on in Wisconsin? Are they losing? Is this game over? Is this one of those, are they done? Like, what is going on? And then I think Wisconsin will slowly take control of the game, figure things out, adjust it to their pace, start to establish their will on the Raiders. But Colgate will not go down without a fight. But I think at the end of the day, Wisconsin gets the win.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think Wisconsin will pretty much, I think, over time, able to keep Colgate under control, under the tempo they want. And Colgate won't really be able to do as much as they would like to do with the ball, and I think Wisconsin just edges them out. This will be a close one, I think.
It will be. It'll be a fun one for sure.
But with that type of matchup, that will favor Wisconsin.
It will. It absolutely will. The next one, USC and Miami. This is one that, to me, feels like it should be a lot tougher of a decision, but to me it just isn't. I'll get into that in a little bit more later, but Miami has won 18 of their last 24. They've been playing great so far, and so is USC. USC, a lot of people thought they were underseeded being a 7 seed. They were a borderline top 20 team all year. And so the Trojans and Canes both have a lot to prove in this game specifically, because you've got to be able to make a run, because you're 7-10, you know who's waiting for you at that 2 spot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's never a fun time being matched up with any 2 seed whatsoever. But if any of these two, if there was anyone to beat Auburn, it could be one of those 2 teams. Both have played tremendous at points this year. They both have big marquee wins they can hang their hat on. With Miami, it's winning at Duke. With USC, it's beating UCLA at home. Both these teams have the marquee wins. They can play great basketball. The only question left is, will they?
That's the question. Will what? You like? Never mind.
No, don't worry. I'm just looking around trying to make sure our 3 monitors we have set up today.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry.
But yeah, it's one of these ones where this one was a really tough one, because even though I wasn't really big on USC most of the entire year, they're like, hey, they're pretty much almost top 20 teams, so I can't really knock them for anything. I also, in many ways, do think they were underseeded, but there are other teams that overall played much, I think, just as good or even better basketball than them. Miami, that's probably about where they should be in regards to what the record is, but they played really well down the stretch. I mean, you knock out Duke early on in the tournament, so it's like, it's really hard to say what I want to pick for this one, but I think I'm going to go with Miami, because I think they're a more hot team than USC.
See, I agree. I think USC has the higher peak, but I think Miami is more consistent.
Yeah.
And consistency will win in these games. I've got Miami winning as well.
And
final game of the first round, an actual old rivalry here, Auburn and Jacksonville State. You're probably wondering what I mean by rivalry, is that these are 2 head coaches that know each other really well. Bruce Pearl and I cannot remember for the life of me the head coach's name at Jacksonville State, but they used to compete every year in D2 back in the 90s. They were rival coaches. They were coaches on rival teams that always played for the conference title in basketball. And from what I've been told, those were some heated games between those 2. They flat out did not like each other. And now here we are, 30 years later, they meet again, not only in a battle for the state of Alabama, Jacksonville State being from Jacksonville, Alabama, not Jacksonville, Florida, like everyone thinks, even though they had to play Jacksonville in Florida. Okay, that's a story for another day. And then they get Auburn, obviously Auburn, Alabama. So this will be an intriguing one as well. Just state pride game, one of these 15-2s that can seemingly come out of nowhere, it feels like. But I don't think it happens here. I think Auburn is just too talented of a team. I think Jacksonville State will put up a fight. They're one of the most efficient 3-point shooting teams.
Yeah, it'll be a valiant effort, but I think Auburn in the end will think probably around maybe 12 minutes into the second half, they'll easily manhandle Jacksonville.
It is going to be a fun round of basketball.
Oh, by the way, your camera's blank.
Oh, by the way, our camera just died, so that's wonderful.
Yay.
It appears your camera didn't die, though, so we're just a full-time Connor cam,
Woo!
I guess. So, yeah, until yours dies in about 5 seconds.
Yeah, it'll probably die in 5 seconds.
Yeah, okay, so, well, that makes life easier for me. Now I don't have to keep messing with the switcher every 10 seconds we switch. So, now that we've got the first round settled out of the way, now let's kind of go through and pick some more. We're halfway done, which is the good thing. But now we've got a little bit more. Do you want to keep the little banners up here, or since we've pretty much given our spiel about every team?
We've given our spiel about every team. I think we can do it without.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But moving on, around of 32 here, Zags taking on the Tigers, Gonzaga and Memphis. Who do you got in that one?
I will with this one with Memphis and Gonzaga, because we'll just go off this little bracket right here. Mine will have slightly different teams, but it's not that much different overall. I think this one will be a much tougher game for Gonzaga in regards to some of the teams they've played most of the year. Memphis will put up a valiant fight. I think this game will go down to the wire, but I think the Zags defense will manage to stop Memphis.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Gonzaga is they're going to continue their run. This will be their first real test, I guess you can say, in terms of you're not really getting a huge challenge playing Georgia State, but you're getting somewhat of a challenge.
Yeah.
But with Memphis, welcome to the real deal.
Yep.
And then next game here, UConn taking on Arkansas. This should be a fun one, a 4-5 matchup.
Both teams have been playing very good basketball. UConn doing really well in the Big East, and Arkansas having a phenomenal year. I think overall, I think they've probably peaked a year early, in my opinion, or maybe a little, for some people, a little late, but it's really hard with this one. But UConn has the history for this, but I think Arkansas will come out victorious in this one and just edge out the Huskies.
Yeah, I think that Arkansas is a phenomenal team. I've been talking about them all year. Not to say UConn isn't by any.
Oh, no.
This will be a top 25 showdown. And I think Arkansas will just find a way to eke it out and set up a matchup between two of the most fun names you can say. Now, I don't call Gonzaga the Bulldogs. I usually just call them the Zags because it's a lot more fun to say. So Zags and Razorbacks, that's a heck of a name you got for name showdowns. Moving to the other side of the West, the first four winner, either it be Rutgers or Notre Dame taking on Texas Tech. Now, kind of the same question with having them. Do you think it makes much of a difference depending on who would be playing the Red Raiders?
Obviously, I don't know how Notre Dame is offensively overall, but Rutgers having a solid year down the stretch, and I think obviously they get past Alabama. If Tech shows up to play defense like they normally do, they'll probably shut down either of those teams pretty much. It's just a matter of, does Tech's offense show up? And obviously I think this is around the time where is this where Tech screws up, or does Tech actually move on? Personally, I initially think I had Rutgers moving on to the Sweet 16, but then I switched it to Tech because I thought about it, and I went, no, I think Tech's defense is what gets them over the hump, even though Rutgers would be a solid pick to go on to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think Rutgers probably would be the sleeper team of this West Regional, but I think Texas Tech is just too good defensively that they're against Montana State, and either it would be Rutgers or Notre Dame. They're good enough to where they can have a 3-4 minute spell and it not entirely come back to destroy them.
Yeah.
But once you get from this point on out, you've got to be playing perfect basketball once you get to the Sweet 16. And speaking of perfect basketball, two schools nearly known for it, Michigan State and Duke, meeting in what would feel like their 80th game against each other in the last 4 years. These two play each other every year in the Champions Classic, and then they always get matched up if they find a way to play each other in the tournament.
Well, personally, I had Davidson playing.
Yeah, you had Davidson here.
And I chose to be the trendy upset pick and had Davidson move on to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
But I think with this matchup, if this is what it more likely will end up being, Duke, I think, would just we just outplay Michigan State and move on to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think Michigan State gets their one win, but Duke is just built a little bit better than Michigan State is this year.
Now, it's like
Davidson, I could see them giving Duke a harder time in terms of being a bit more of a outside shooting team, which Duke has had some problems with this year.
That's where I think Davidson would get Duke on that on the outside shooting, because Duke has unnaturally struggled with that. I mean, usually they always have that go-to shooter to get them 3-point shots like they used to, like Redick used to be, but now it's just like it's odd for a Duke team not to have a sharpshooter.
It is. Moving on to the next round over here, Arizona versus TCU. Should be a intriguing one for a little bit, but I think Arizona eventually just overpowers TCU.
I think TCU defensively might give Arizona a bit of a hard time at first, but I think Arizona will adjust necessarily quickly to it, and then Arizona will just outshoot TCU by a good amount. This is more of a mismatch for TCU. If TCU had more offensive weapons, it would be a really close matchup. Heck, you could probably pick an upset there, but I don't think it'll be enough it won't be enough to stop Arizona.
Yeah, I don't think so either. The next one, Houston and Illinois. Now, this could arguably be a top 15 game in the second round.
It would be.
I mean, you just two absolutely great teams battling against each other. This should be a fun one. This will be a scrappy game. But at the end of the day, I just like Illinois a little bit better than Houston. No. Just a little bit better. Now, Illinois playing UAB in your bracket, I don't know how you would feel about it, but
with this matchup, I would have Illinois moving on.
Okay.
It's the first round that would have been different, where Houston gets upset by UAB. But otherwise, UAB does not beat Illinois. I think in another fun bracket I had UAB winning against Illinois or Houston, or not Illinois, but I chose Illinois to move on. I think they were just overall a better team, plus also with the help of the information that they had 3 guys make the AP team, also getting one of their better players back. It's like Illinois, I think, would roll them, but I think but the matchup between Houston and Illinois, I think it'd be a lot tougher. But if UAB gets the upset and then has to play Illinois, I don't think UAB will be able to handle that. Especially Illinois is just a much bigger team.
They are.
I think they're big. Aren't they bigger than Houston overall?
I think they are.
I think that's where it'd be a little different, because UAB I think could rely on perimeter, mid-range and perimeter shooting, while as this one I think it's going to be tougher because Illinois is just a better defensive team.
They are. And then also thank you, Mike, for getting your bracket filled out here on ESPN, registering it with us. So we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Moving to the second half of the South, Michigan versus Tennessee is what I have. I know you have Colorado State and Tennessee, so I'll let you kind of go through your spiel first of the Rams and the Vols.
All right, with this one, with the Rams and the Vols, obviously, I mean, the Michigan-Tennessee matchup is very likely to also happen. So I'm not for me, it's not as big of a difference. Though the difference is, I'm going to go with the Michigan-Tennessee one first. Is that Tennessee will outplay Michigan.
They will.
Yeah, Michigan does not have enough in the tank, and plus, especially with the win-loss.
Yeah, win-loss.
There's no consistency. That is considered consistency. That's not the one.
Inconsistent consistency is what that is.
That's not what you want. So
that's what you want if you're a Vols fan.
Tennessee would roll them, though. I chose to be trendy with the upsets on this part of the bracket, and had Colorado State edging out Tennessee. Though I think logically, I probably would have picked Tennessee, but I chose. You know what? This tournament has a lot of things that can happen.
That's true.
I chose to pick Colorado State to go on to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is just an overall better team. I think they were underseeded. I think the Vols personally should have been a 2 seed, especially getting that SEC championship and then went over Kentucky and how they've been playing the last few weeks. I think they're on fire right now. And Michigan coming into this, they'll have that momentum riding off the Colorado State win, but it won't be enough to carry them. The next game, speaking of momentum, a team kind of known for creating both, I guess you could say, teams known for creating their own momentum in the postseason. Villanova taking on Loyola Chicago. Now, this would be a game I would tease Andrew about just for the heck of it. Just be like, "Oh, here comes Loyola.
Oh,
Here
Loyola,
they
Chicago.
come. Oh, the Sister Jean, you better watch out." You just got to throw all the jokes at him. And then, of course, if Loyola were to somehow win, then, he could just say, "You're in the NIT," and be like, "Yeah, didn't lose to Loyola Chicago, though."
Yeah, couldn't be me.
Couldn't be me. We just take their coach instead. But this should be an intriguing one. I'm sure there will be a lot of memes about Loyola upsetting Villanova before the game even happens.
Oh, of course.
Because, that's just the power that they possess at this point with being a successful mid-major.
Yep, but obviously, as much as everyone loves Loyola Chicago, especially they've had a great year again, once again another great year, I should say. Yeah. But Villanova is just it's Villanova.
Yeah,
I think Villanova will be will outscore Loyola Chicago with their outside shooting, and I think we'll move on to play Tennessee.
I think so. Villanova is just going to overpower Loyola. Not to say that, I guess overpower is a bit strong of a word. Loyola will make this a game. That is one thing I will always give credit to the Ramblers for, is they do not back down from a challenge. They will play anybody, anytime, anywhere, and they will make it a game.
Oh, most definitely.
They absolutely will. Whether it be Porter Moser squad, whether it now be Drew Valentine, whether it be anybody.
They're always a fun team to watch. That's the thing you have to give them credit for. They will always make it fun to watch.
They absolutely will. As we make our way down to the east side of the bracket, Baylor, North Carolina, the second round game there, could be interesting considering how Baylor's been down the stretch. Not as a little more wobbly than usual, but I still think Baylor is good enough. They're talented enough, despite injuries, to overcome a strong performance from the Tar Heels.
Yeah, I agree also. I think Baylor will be a little too much for North Carolina defensively, and I think Baylor's shooting overall will be slightly better than North Carolina. And I think as long as Baylor does not get in foul trouble quickly, I think Baylor should probably win this game.
And then St. Mary's, UCLA, 4-5 again. UCLA will get slowed down, but they're okay playing at that tempo. They can play it either way. They can go fast, they can go slow, and I think the Bruins just out-talent St. Mary's, but St. Mary's will make this a game.
St. Mary's will make this a game. I was so tempted to, I think in the one of the other brackets I did that was more serious-esque, I had St. Mary's getting the upset, but for the one that I'm more likely to submit, well, I did submit for the stuff they do for the giveaways on the challenge stuff. I chose a UCLA to edge them out.
Yeah, that's what I have as well. Baylor taking on UCLA in the Sweet 16. Moving to the next one, Virginia Tech and Purdue. I just have two things to say about this. Number one, gobble. Hokies win.
Yeah,
I think Virginia Tech continues their hot streak. I think we finally see the classic Purdue choke, I guess is the best way to play it. I think someone will finally find a way to just make Purdue guard the outside, trying to get a 7'4" center to guard, a point guard or shooting guard. Virginia Tech will go to that switch, I think, a lot. And I think Yale will show some success with it, but I think Virginia Tech will perfectly execute it. And I have the Hokies being kind of that miracle team you see make some sort of run and continue their upset reign.
I do also.
Okay.
I have Virginia Tech pulling. This is where it's like, as great as Purdue always is during the regular season, it's the postseason.
Postseason always gets
with this postseason. I'm not counting their Big Ten tournament because they will sometimes win that, but otherwise,
when they get to the NCAA tournament,
when it's the NCAA tournament, they collapse at the worst time. It's like they don't. It's not like collapsing near like the Elite Eight or the Final Four where they lose in heartbreaking fashion. They're second Sweet 16 out. Like they're gone much earlier than people have them going.
That is true. And then Murray State and Kentucky, another state pride game like I talked about. Two teams in the same state that never seem to play each other. These always seem to benefit the smaller school. I think it does here. Murray State will play a fantastic game, but at the end of the day, their competitiveness in the Ohio Valley, I think, comes back to hurt them, and Kentucky's able to beat them up in the second half, and Oscar Tshiebwe has a big day.
And that's where I think we're disagreeing on that one. I have Murray State actually getting an upset on Kentucky and moving on to face Virginia Tech.
Yeah. So, once again, our brackets differ. I have Kentucky winning that one. You've got Murray State. And I that one could go either way. I could see that being an either or. I just think Murray State is a little unimpressive in some of the games I've watched of them where it's, if they're supposed to be a top 25 team, you should beat Southeast Missouri State by more than 2 points. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, but we have to realize some of those games, while it might seem like they should be easily winning by a lot more, that doesn't always amount to anything because that's why you play the game.
Exactly. But it's just they have not impressed me as much as I would like to compared to other Murray State teams of the past. Moving on to Kansas and San Diego State, the Jayhawks having to take on the number 1 defense in the land. I think the Aztecs will give Kansas some problems, but I think Kansas will be able to make somewhat of an adjustment to get the Jayhawks to the Sweet 16.
I think the Kansas offense will just be too overpowering. I mean, the Big 12 overall is like the defenses in the Big 12 are really good on average, like versus the rest of the country. But Kansas has been able to rip teams apart in regards to their offense. They've been able to beat up teams that typically have a really good defense. So, as great as San Diego State is, I don't think it'll be enough to stop Kansas.
Yeah, I do want to thank all of our followers we've had tuning in. I do want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in. For those of you that have not given us a follow, feel free to give us a follow here on Twitch. We will be back Thursday, trying to live stream every game of March Madness. That would be 12 straight hours of content. I will lose brain cells during that probably at some point. I know Andrew and I are going to try to. You're more than welcome, of course, Connor, to show up at any time.
I'll actually be down in Stillwater.
Never mind.
When that happens. So,
but,
as I would love to be here, but I'm going to be going down to see my parents.
And there's no problem with that. But Andrew and I will be trapped in this little bunker here for 12 hours watching every single game if we get a hold of it. That's what we're trying to do. If you want to see content like that, feel free to give us a follow. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. That's NWTV7. Give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere. It feels weird giving the end of stream spiel now, but hey, this is our highest viewer count we've ever had on this show.
Also the show's like it's been going on quite a long time.
Yeah, I would say we got
to insert it every now and then.
Yeah, we got to give the little shameless plug every once in a while. But speaking of not shameless plugs, Iowa and South Dakota State are 2 really good teams, and I enjoy watching both of them. Yeah. That is a statement I can say, not lying.
Yeah, for this one, I had Providence and Iowa.
Yeah, you had Providence, Iowa.
But for this one, in regards to, I think it'll be the same either way. I have Iowa just outplaying South Dakota State.
Yeah, I think Iowa would beat South Dakota State. It would be a fun shootout. It honestly could be 1st to 90 in this one.
Yeah.
It could be one of those shoot the lights out of the gym. And I think if Iowa played Providence, I would still take Iowa.
Yeah, I would still take Iowa.
Yeah, and this is when we need Andrew, because he was talking all year about Providence, and this is a really fun team. And it was funny because we were talking about this.
My camera died.
Yeah, we were talking about this Sunday. Yeah, there we go. See, the other camera doesn't like hearing us trash Providence either, I guess. Neither of them are Providence haters, so that's good. So we'll just move our little logo down here and make it a slightly bigger, and there you go. That's what we call editing, ladies and gentlemen. But he was talking a lot about how he thought Providence would be a great team, and it was funny because he was like, oh, yeah, South Dakota State's going to beat them, though. He's like, what? I was just like, all right, here we go. But I think that will be intriguing to see. LSU and Wisconsin will be another weird one. This will be I think more of a defensive game. I think LSU will give them a great effort, but Wisconsin will be able to bend the game to their will, and I see the Badgers winning this one.
And this is obviously because I had Iowa State winning
Iowa
against
State
LSU.
Here.
I actually also had Iowa State somehow getting past Wisconsin.
You have way more faith in Iowa State basketball than I do. I think you have more Iowa State.
You talk so much more trash on Wisconsin than you've had Iowa State.
That is true. I just don't trust Iowa State. I think you trust Iowa State more than most Iowa State fans.
Just a little bit more, but probably out of the two, with the LSU-Wisconsin matchup, I probably would pick Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm rolling with.
I mean, basically, I'm relying on Iowa State to figure out how to play offense.
That's a bold assumption.
That's a bold
one. You need to call Coach Otts immediately after the show. and be like, listen, do I need to give you offense for dummies? Because
I can do it.
Go tell Isaiah Brockington, ball goes in the hoop, not out the hoop. Teach your other teammates that. You're the only one who understands. And
Shoot the ball, make it go swish through the hoop.
Yes, that's what you need to do. Just bring Hilton Magic with you if you need to. Put it in a briefcase. I don't know if you could stuff momentum in a briefcase, but they'll find a way. Miami taking on Auburn. I think Miami will have a good fight in this one, but I just can't see anyone beating Auburn in that 10-2 matchup there. I don't see USC beating Auburn. I don't see Miami beating Auburn. I think if it was a different 2 seed, for example, maybe Villanova, maybe Kentucky or Duke on an off night, I could see it happening. But I just don't think Auburn.
I think Auburn is going to be too much. I think for all my brackets, Auburn gets past them. I just don't see Auburn losing that matchup.
And then Gonzaga, Arkansas moving up to the Sweet 16 now, going back to the West bracket. I think as much as I would like to see Arkansas get this win, and I think they're capable of it, I just do not trust Arkansas. I do trust them, but I don't trust them.
I think the Zags will go back to the Elite Eight, and I think this is one where it's Arkansas will put up one heck of a fight.
Yes, this will be a battle.
I think Gonzaga will offensively just outperform Arkansas, even though Arkansas is very capably offensively of beating up teams. But it's not going to work on Gonzaga.
And then Duke, Texas Tech. I think, unfortunately for the Red Raiders, a good defense can only carry you so far. You're going to have to score at some point. I think they can, but Duke will be just a little bit better than them. I've got the Blue Devils on their way to the Elite Eight.
Now, if Duke gets plays Tech, I do agree Duke would win.
Yeah, so
but this is where I had Davidson.
You have Davidson playing Texas Tech.
And I still have Davidson keeping on going.
You still have the miracle run.
Yeah, I still have them going up to play Gonzaga in the Elite Eight.
All righty. Then Arizona, Illinois, a rematch of an old game from a long time ago that I still hear Arizona and Illinois fans talk about. Unfortunately, Darren Williams is not coming through that door, and I believe Arizona will get the win. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun game, but I think Arizona is just too talented for the Illini.
I have to agree with that one. Arizona will just outshoot Illinois. As great as Illinois is defensively, and also they can shoot, Arizona is just too much.
Mm-hmm. And then Tennessee and Villanova. This one I'm pretty sure we disagree on. I have Tennessee winning this one. I think Tennessee is a top 5 team as of right now. As of today, Tennessee is one of the best 5 teams in college basketball, and I think Big Orange gets a welcome return to the Elite Eight. Villanova will have a good run. This will be a great game. This could be one of those OT, double OT type games. These teams are well-balanced, but I just like Tennessee a little bit more.
This will probably be an overtime game, but I think Nova outplays Tennessee on that one. But this one, except it would probably be a much bigger deficit. I had Villanova pretty much down the stretch beat up Colorado State.
Yeah, so you have Villanova, Colorado State on this one. So we disagree, but at the same time kind of agree in that, I don't know, that's sports sometimes.
Yep.
Moving on to the East, this is where I get a little crazy. Not really crazy, but just a little bit. I've got UCLA beating Baylor. I think Baylor's run ends here. UCLA is able to take advantage of an injured Baylor team. Baylor has one of those off nights that they've seemingly had a bit more frequently, and I think UCLA is able to shoot the lights out. And I've got the Bruins taking down the Bears. It's almost the same word, but UCLA beating Baylor is what I have there.
That's where we'll disagree on is I still have Baylor continuing their run to defend their championship.
Yep.
With just edging out UCLA, I think having another good day shooting and their defense coming through.
Yep.
And UCLA I think this will probably be a game that could possibly go 2 overtimes.
It very well could.
So, but I think obviously where we disagree, Baylor will move on while UCLA will go home.
Yep. I think UCLA moves on, Baylor goes home.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, we don't know.
I know.
We'll be back here next week, and knowing us, St. Mary's will win the entire thing. It'll be like, well, we were both wrong.
Yeah, more than likely.
Well, guys, we don't know how to Akron won. We don't know how this happened. Akron to the Elite Eight. Make it happen, Zips. Moving to Virginia Tech, Kentucky.
I'm assuming you'll have Kentucky.
Yeah, I have Kentucky. I think, unfortunately, Virginia Tech's luck runs out there running into this Wildcats team that has been great all season.
And obviously, for me, continue on from that Murray State-Kentucky game.
Yeah.
I had Murray State playing Virginia Tech, and I think Murray State ends Virginia Tech's run.
Yeah. We both have a team from Kentucky.
I have 2 10 seeds in my bracket going to at least going to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, you've got a bit more, but we have boldness in different areas, I guess is the best way to put it.
You're still more top seeded heavy, while I decided.
Yeah, you're just like, listen, upsets.
Yeah, but upsets. You got.
I like upsets. This feels like I feel like after all the chaos of not having a season and having a COVID year, we will get one of the more chalky tournaments. Like, we're due for a chalky one.
That's true, but
then again, you could say that about everything. Where we're due for one and then it never happens.
Yeah, I think. But I think regardless of who Murray State or Kentucky, I think they beat Virginia Tech. Kentucky, I could easily see them moving on. So I agree with the assessment.
Yeah.
That Kentucky plays UCLA in regards to your bracket, but they would be playing more likely to play Baylor, and if I chose Kentucky.
Yeah.
But obviously for me, it's Murray State and Baylor.
You got Murray State, Baylor. I think this Kansas-Iowa game is going to be a stretch. I have seen a lot of people say Iowa will beat Kansas. A lot of people rely on that offense of the Hawkeyes. I just don't see how you go against Ochai Agbaji and that Kansas defense.
That Big 12,
the Big 12 is one of the best defensive conferences and best conferences in general in basketball.
Mm-hmm. And also, but Kansas also has a great offense. Like, I think probably second or best in the Big 12. But that defense is going to be too much for Iowa to really deal with. I think it'll probably end up being a shootout, but I think Kansas defense does enough to get the job done. Or they'll implode on themselves. Who knows?
But that too. Kansas could lose to South Dakota, or they could lose to South Dakota State. That's a possibility. They could also lose to the team I was thinking of, San Diego State. Anything can happen in March. You can play 2 teams at the same time.
Yep.
That's what I was advocating for. Texas A&M should have just shown up to a game and been like, listen, we're here. We're playing. I don't care. And Wisconsin-Auburn, this will be a fun back and forth. Wisconsin's slow pace of play, I think, finally catches up to them. And I've got Auburn just somehow finding another way, despite some of their inconsistent play down the stretch. I think they regroup, they get it together, and they play some of their best basketball. Now that they're here, they play some of their best basketball and get the win over Wisconsin.
Well, obviously, in place of Wisconsin, I had Iowa State.
Yes, you have Iowa State.
But the result is the same. Auburn pretty much just takes advantage of Iowa State not really great on offense down this part of the year. I mean, obviously, that could change for the tournament where Iowa State all of a sudden figures out their offense again. But this is the point where I think it catches up with them, and Auburn pretty much decimates them.
Yep.
Because it'd just be a mismatch.
Yeah. Now we are here to the Elite Eight. And if you thought my boldness, I already made the UCLA beating Baylor. Let's go one step further. Duke beats Gonzaga again. Duke already beat them once this year. I think they are a great matchup against the Zags. I like Duke, and especially in Coach K's final year, they're going to find a way. You just have that feeling in the back of your mind. Even if you don't want it to happen, you just have a feeling Duke is going to find a way.
Now, obviously, if I chose to have Duke in this, just focus on the Duke-Gonzaga one.
Yeah.
This one's tough one. Obviously, Duke beat Gonzaga the first time earlier this year.
They played, and Duke won, I believe it was 15-20, somewhere in that range. Granted, this was back in November. Things have changed a lot since then.
Yeah, Gonzaga, I think, overall is a much better team than they were back earlier.
Yeah, they're still trying to figure out how to play together.
Duke is not as strong as they were earlier in the year, but, I mean, Duke's still really good regardless. But I think I'd still have the Zags get payback and win against Duke in regards to what you have, but I had them beating Davidson.
Yeah, you had
Davidson's run ends in the Elite Eight. They don't get past the Final Four as much as people would love them to do that.
Yeah, you've got Davidson's miracle run.
But they lose at the Elite Eight.
Yeah, but they lose to so you have all mid-major Elite Eight, which would be pretty fun to see. An all mid-major Elite Eight on the west side. At least.
on the west. Yeah, pretty much on that side of the bracket.
Yeah, that would be a fun game for sure. And Arizona, Tennessee, I think this will be a intriguing I've said this has been an intriguing game way too many times in this show.
It's intriguing.
It's my go-to word at this point. And this will be fun. Tennessee will play a great game, but I think their run finally comes to an end, and Arizona solidifies their case to the Final Four with the win.
I think between Arizona and Tennessee, I'd pick Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
But for Nova in Arizona, I picked Nova to go to the Final Four.
Yep. So you got Villanova over Arizona. I got Arizona over Tennessee. Moving on to the East, this is going to be a bit different. I've got UCLA and Kentucky in that Elite Eight, and I have Big Blue Nation representing, once again, I think Oscar Tshiebwe just has an insanely good game. He might have one of those 2020 games in there. He's able to just feast on the boards and get inside, and Kentucky's just an absolute dominant post team, and they'll be able to lock UCLA down there, make them go outside, which UCLA will have some success with, I think, but not enough. And I've got Kentucky playing Duke in the Final Four.
And obviously with that particular matchup, I picked Kentucky to win that one. But obviously for that Elite Eight, I had Baylor and Murray State. And I picked Baylor to end Murray State's run.
Yeah, so you've got Baylor in the Final Four out of the East. I've got Kentucky.
So for that matchup, it would be Gonzaga versus Baylor, a rematch from the last year's national title.
Yep. And Kansas and Auburn. And this is one that took me a little bit to think about because I like both of these teams. I've enjoyed watching them this entire season. I've seen both of them play Oklahoma, and both times I've seen them. Auburn looked like the better team, but I think the tides have changed a little bit. I think Kansas is playing their best basketball right now. Auburn is not. I think Kansas's momentum continues to carry them, and I've got Kansas making an appearance in the Final Four.
And I agree with that. I have Kansas going to the Final Four.
Yeah, this finally feels like the year Kansas gets things figured out and makes that return to the Final Four in New Orleans. So looking at it on my side, Duke, Kentucky, Arizona, and Kansas as your Final Four. On your side, I believe you've got Gonzaga, you've got Baylor, you've got Villanova, and then Kansas.
Yep.
So we agree on one.
Only one team out of both of our brackets makes it.
Yeah. Well, we both have Kansas, I guess, which means
I'm
so sorry, Kansas.
That's
I know. I'm just restating things we already said because I've got nothing else to do. But Duke, Kentucky, in my opinion, they play each other. Absolute battle inside. You're going to see Paolo Banchero, Oscar Tshiebwe. That's going to be a tremendous center battle.
All those Dr. Black, my band teacher, he's going to be rooting hard for Kentucky on this one.
Why is he just is he just a big Kentucky fan?
He went to school at Kentucky. For
that makes sense. That makes sense
to get his doctorate, so he has a bit of a bias toward Kentucky.
I would think so. That sounds like a good reason to have a bias. So if you paid money to go there, you probably have a good enough reason to root for them. But I got Kentucky winning this one. I'm really impressed with this Wildcats team. I think even though they had a bad showing in the SEC tournament, losing to Tennessee, they had a tight game with Vanderbilt. I still think they regroup and they get to the national championship game.
And for those two.
Yeah, you've got Gonzaga, Baylor.
Before I get to mine, I'm going to obviously talk about yours. Duke and Kentucky, I had this one, obviously that one's going to be a really tough matchup like you talked about. But I agree. I think Kentucky just overwhelms Duke because I think Kentucky overall has a better squad and I think has better shooters.
I think so. I think if Kentucky can just get their guard play a little bit better, they will make a great run here in the tournament. And that's what I think is going to happen. Moving on to the other game I have, Arizona, Kansas. We both agree on Kansas. Arizona, a little bit different. I've got them. You've got Villanova. I think this is where Kansas's run comes to an end. I think Arizona is able to play a little bit better. They'll be kind of Kansas's equal for most of the game. But Arizona just has that factor to them this year. They've played such great basketball. I think they continue on their run to the national championship game.
I agree with that particular matchup.
Yeah. You've got Villanova, Kansas, so
yeah,
I'm interested to see who you've got there.
I'll get to that. We'll need to discuss the Zags and Baylor game. But Arizona, I think like you said, it'll be a very close matchup throughout almost the entire game. Hey, this could be a game that goes to overtime.
It very well could. This will be a tight game.
But I think Arizona will just outplay Kansas, and Kansas will go on to the no, not Kansas. Arizona will go on to the national title game. Now, for my Final Four, I have Baylor defeating Gonzaga in their rematch, and Baylor will go on to the national title game to defend their championship, and then I have Villanova upsetting Kansas, probably in the final seconds of the game to go on to the national title.
Okay. It's an interesting game there. So my national championship game of Kentucky and Arizona will be a hard-fought battle. It'll be probably remembered as a really good game, I at least hope, if these two do end up playing each other. And I think at the end of the day, the team that reigns supreme will not be the team you would think. I've talked both these teams up. I've talked Kentucky up more than I've talked up Arizona. But I think at the end of the day, Arizona is a more complete team than Kentucky, and I've got Arizona winning the national title.
Fair assessment. I can't knock on that at all. But I'm going to disagree with you on that one with regards to your bracket, and Kentucky edges out Arizona. I think Kentucky will be too overwhelming in the paint, and I think they'll be able to be Arizona's equal in regards to shooting. I think the guard play steps up for the game and actually overwhelms Arizona. Now for my championship game for Baylor and Nova, Baylor repeats as champion.
All right, and
they win 66-64 over Villanova.
You've got Baylor repeating as champs. I've got a new champ in Arizona. The important thing is we both had 1 seeds. That's the only similarity we've got. 1 seeds from the entire.
Oh, we have a 1 and 2 seed.
Yeah, we both have a 1 and 2 seed playing each other in the national title game, and we both have a 1 seed beating that 2 seed. So we do have some similarities, even though pretty much once we got to the Sweet 16, we threw all consistency we had with each other out the window. Once again, for those of you tuning in, I encourage you, we do have our own bracket pool this year. If you go to ESPN, the Men's Tournament Challenge, you can go to groups if you want to. Obviously, this is the bracket we've created. I've shown you my picks and everything. We're going to leave the page real quick just to show you what to do. You can create your own group. Don't do that. We already have a group. You can just give it a little search here. If you look for fans of TGWSS, you should be able to enter. There we are. You can click on our group and create a bracket in here. You can see all 22 of mine, and even Mike and Perkins has his own bracket as well. So you can create your own bracket now. Just click that button, fill out a bracket, put it on, and compete with us to see who the winner is. We don't have a prize or anything. We're not giving it away. We'll mention you on the show next week when we're back in action and continue to mention how the brackets are going for the rest of the tournament. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you join. I encourage you to join. And good luck to may the best bracket win, I guess.
The best bracket win.
Is the best way to say it. But going back, obviously recapping, Texas Southern beating Texas A&M Corpus Christi. This was a fun one that we did not pay a whole lot of attention to. We were a little bit busy bracketeering in the background.
Yeah.
This game was played. But the other game going on right now, in the first half, Wyoming up 18-17 over Indiana. 4 minutes to go in the first half. Now 21-19 Wyoming, 3:15 to go in the first half. So far it seems that the Cowboys are holding on against the Hoosiers.
Yep, pretty much. Wyoming has had a overall great season, and obviously Indiana, not the season they would have liked, but this is going to be a tough one down the stretch. I think this is going to be more back and forth affair going into the lordy.
I think so, but this is the thing this is the number to look at. You look at 3-point percentage as ESPN tries to make me look away. 44% right now for Wyoming compared to 14% for Indiana from deep. That is the magic number right there. When you've got a plus 30 in 3-point percentage, that's a telling sign that Indiana is able to keep the game tied right now. That does not bode well for either team. That's a kind of concerning number if you're Wyoming, that you're shooting that well and they're shooting that poorly from deep and it's still tied. If you're Indiana, you're looking at it thinking, we need to be able to shoot the ball better. There's absolutely no way about it. Shooting 31% right now. Wyoming's defense playing great basketball. But as you see, Wyoming kind of get these runs, they'll go on real quick, and then they'll stall, and then they'll quick, and then they'll stall. Now they're finally getting into a bit more of a race. And as we look over on the other side, look at some of the NIT games going on today, just give them a little bit of love as well. Just mention some of the games. VCU knocking out Princeton 90-79. Vanderbilt getting an 82-71 win over Belmont, and Oklahoma getting an 89-72 win over Missouri State. So good games there. Got more going on. Texas State, North Texas live right now. That's on ESPN+. On the U, you've got Cleveland State Xavier, ESPN2, Alcorn State at Texas A&M, and on ESPN right now, Oregon at Utah State. So there's been a whole lot going on, and we've not even talked about some of the other – we have not gotten off of college basketball yet. I do want to mention this before we go off the air tonight. A little bit of NFL news going on late into the hours tonight that I have seen. Now, this is pulled up on the laptop here. This is what I've been kind of looking at during some of our talking points here. Baker Mayfield, the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, rumors starting to swirl now that Cleveland is going to possibly make a trade for Deshaun Watson, possibly going to get him. And there are now rumors coming out that the Browns might trade Baker even if they do not get Deshaun Watson. Rumors that they might trade him to the Colts. Colts are now looking for a quarterback after trading Carson Wentz to the Commanders. So a lot of moving parts in this situation late at night. Just when you thought we couldn't have even more going on today.
Well, for some people, well, now it's like it goes Colts, so it's like, well, I'm no longer at least remotely rooting for the Colts. It's like
I would say I look forward to potential Colts games being shown in the Oklahoma City market. That's all I can say. Time for everyone who is not an NFL person already to become a Colts fan, myself included, potentially. Potentially.
People make me sick.
I'm sorry. I'm not apologizing. That's all I can say. That I don't have an NFL team. I never have. I just don't follow. I just don't.
You don't follow it, but yet you talk about it.
I talk about it. I don't follow it as closely as I do college. I follow the NFL. I don't actively root for a certain team. I root for players.
Find someone, please.
No.
I love a God.
I don't like Dallas.
Be a normal person.
No, I refuse. I will never, probably never actually find a team unless Oklahoma gets an NFL team.
Which will never happen.
Which will never happen because I was raised, you don't root for Dallas, and then you find someone to root for.
I'm surprised you never rooted for St. Louis, despite the fact
I did root for St. Louis. They had Sam Bradford. That's why I rooted for them.
When they didn't have Sam Bradford, you dope.
Well, I was 5, so I didn't know what the NFL was. I just played with, like, Legos or something. I don't know. I was a non-sports person when I was 5 years old. Well, I was probably watching Sam Bradford in college at OU, but don't remember.
He was in college. Like he still was.
Yeah, I was still watching Sam Bradford.
You were 9 years old when he joined the Rams.
I was born in 2002, so
in his last college year was 2009, 10.
No, his last year was 2008, 2009.
No, it wasn't.
Or
2009 was the year he broke his collarbone.
Yeah, the 2009 season, 2010. I can't speak.
2009 going into the 10 season. He got drafted in the 2010 draft.
Yeah, he got drafted in the 2010 draft.
So you were
so I would have been
8 or 9.
Yeah, 8. Yeah, because 9 would have been 2011.
You said 5. I'm like, dude, that is
5 is 07. So I'm thinking of.
You're thinking of.
I'm thinking of his sophomore year.
You're thinking of someone else.
I'm thinking of his sophomore year because his junior year was 08, and then he played in the 09 title game against Florida, and then 09 was supposed to be the big year, and he got hurt, and then 10 was full on Landry Jones.
I mean, like even. Like when the Rams were still in St. Louis, and surprised because you would root for all the other St. Louis teams.
I do. I remember for the Rams. I remember rooting for the Rams. I was rooting for Bradford to do well. And
that was not when Bradford was there.
Yes, he was. He was there for like 2 years.
I'm sorry, when he was not there.
Yeah, when he was not there, I didn't.
I'm saying is that makes it weird because you're a St. Louis team all the way, but all of a sudden you just don't root for the Rams.
Well, they never really had a football culture. They really didn't. They had the Rams. They had the greatest show on turf. They came in. It was great, and then
the Blues,
they left.
For the longest time, never had much of anything to offer, yet you still rooted for them.
Yes, because that was passed on down to me from my father. That was ingrained into me to root for them.
Your dad's just odd.
Yeah, well, hey, that's just what we grew up rooting for. You root for the Cardinals, you root for the Blues, and then in the NBA, you root for the Mavs. That's just what we did. That's just how life be.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's odd. That's just how I was raised. That's all I could say about that. I mean, most people.
It's odd, but yet you still refuse to change it.
No, I'm not changing it. As Nick Saban said, so quit asking. I'm not going to change it. So quit asking.
And I will keep harping you on it.
Yeah, well, you can. I'm not going to
as an idiot.
I mean, you can do that if you want to. I'm going to stick to my
beliefs,
however weird they are.
That's probably why you root for the Sooners.
That's actually not why.
That is exactly why.
I root for them because that was also ingrained in me, that you root for Oklahoma because, you're in
why
Oklahoma. I have family that went to Oklahoma.
It just explains everything.
Well, at least I don't, try to do the, Walmart argument. And I'm glad you don't either, but that's the other thing. At least we don't have to deal with that on this show. We don't have to deal with the Walmart Sooners argument because I have family that went to OU, so we thankfully don't have to bring that up at least. That has nothing to do with anything. I'm just throwing that out there. That is all I'm saying about that. But moving on to, I really don't have any other things to get to today. That just kind of was impromptu. The whole Baker Mayfield thing going on. I guess I could root for the Cardinals now with Kyler Murray. I mean, I'm still rooting for them in general. Root for Philadelphia with Hurts. Hope they do well.
Boo, Philly.
Yeah,
Boo.
Yeah, you say that, but then when Andrew shows up.
Boo. I do it in front of him.
I know you do it in front of him, but we need more of it. We need more animosity on this show. We got to get the true Philadelphia experience. I could just start playing the Always Sunny theme while you two yell about sports. I'll just kind of hum.
Me just dunking on him the whole time.
Like,
talking about how trash Philly is.
Yeah, well, that'll be quite the episode when that happens. And I'm sad we couldn't talk about the NBA stuff because the Nets-Sixers game, I don't know if you watched any of the Ben Simmons game.
I've heard what happened.
The Brooklyn just absolutely destroyed them.
Decimated them.
Yeah, I mean, that was just so out. I mean, I kind of expected it because it was like, oh, yeah, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving exist. Oh, yeah. Dang it. And then it was like, okay, maybe this will be a fun game. Maybe it won't. It was just like, okay, whatever. Okay, never mind. Okay, Brooklyn's destroying them. What is happening?
They did it for Ben Simmons.
They did it for Ben. So I'm proud of them.
Maybe he'll actually start playing basketball now.
No. He refuses. Even when he was in pregame, the crowd was like, shoot the ball, and he wouldn't shoot it. It was like, oh, I don't know if he's seeing ghosts out there or what.
Maybe he doesn't want to give them the satisfaction.
Maybe. We can run through the NBA standings real quick here, not go into super depth about it today, but Miami's still your 1 seed, Milwaukee 2, Philadelphia 3, Philly only a game behind Milwaukee. Chicago half a game behind the Sixers in 4th place, Boston half a game behind with 5 spot there. Cleveland in 6, you move to the play-in teams, Toronto 7, Brooklyn 8, Atlanta 9, Charlotte 10. You have a 4-game gap between the Hornets and the Wizards. Wizards trying to get it any way they can in. The Knicks are currently in 12th, and then the Pacers in 13th. And the Pistons in 14th, the Magic in 15th. Both those teams already eliminated.
Yeah.
The tanking is, if it wasn't already on for some people in their minds for some reason, and you just thought they were that bad, it's official.
Well, Suns have officially clinched this spot.
Yeah, Suns are officially in the playoffs to the surprise of absolutely no one. And they've got a 7-game lead on the number 1 seed in the West, with Memphis currently 2nd and half a game behind them, the Warriors in 3rd. You have another jump of 4.5 games before you get to Utah and Dallas battling for that 4 spot. Utah currently 4, Dallas currently 5. Denver holds the 6th spot, a game and a half behind. Move to the play-in games, Minnesota 7, LA Clippers 8, Lakers are 9, the Pelicans are 10, only a game behind the Lakers. That's just still, I'm going to keep harping on that. Portland a game and a half out, trying to find a way into the play-in spot, and a game behind them is San Antonio. Also, shout out to Greg Popovich, officially becoming the all-time wins leader in the NBA, his 1,336th career win as a head coach.
Congrats to him.
Yep, and then Sacramento, Oklahoma City, and Houston round out the West.
I am so shocked that Houston has yet to be eliminated from the playoffs.
You just need 11 games in a row to go your way, and everything is still out that you want. Same thing for Oklahoma City. They're 8 games out of the playoffs, despite the fact that they're tanking.
Well, I don't think it's mostly intentional at all.
I don't think so, but
they're competitive in most of their games, even the ones that they lose. But it's like then they're just like it's like they're not tanking, but it feels like they're tanking.
I mean, it does feel like it at times. Just one little quick update before we get on out of here. Indiana up 26-23 over Wyoming. 1:02 to go in the first half. Now 42 seconds to go in the first half. That game currently on True TV as it is about to head to the half. And that will wrap everything up for tonight. It has been a wonderful time being with all of you. Once again, before we get off the air, we encourage you to join our bracket pool at Fantasy ESPN. We already showed you how to do it, how to get everything signed up. If you'd like to do that and join us, join the group, compete, try to win the grand prize that ESPN has, or just, compete with us for fun. That's always a possibility. And we encourage you to do so. But if not, that is perfectly fine. We can't force you to do anything, obviously. I can't reach you through the computer screen, so I don't think you want me doing that anyway. I'm sure about go away. What are you doing? But but we always, as always, we thank you for tuning in to our broadcast. I will be back Thursday with Andrews and D'Angelo. We will be live and alive at 11 a.m., probably the earliest stream we've ever done on this show, or channel, show, whatever you want to call it. This will be the earliest we've ever done. We're trying to get, if we can do it now. Obviously, this will require a lot of moving parts, and we'll keep you notified on Facebook and Twitter on what happens. But we're trying to get a 12-hour stream of basketball all day here in the studio. I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know if that'll actually happen. That's still in the works. Hopefully it does happen. And if it does, we'll let you know. We'll be bright and early at 11 a.m. Thursday. If not, have a great rest of March Madness. And final score here, final time, 13 seconds to go in the first half. Indiana up 30-23. For Connor Gray, I am Cade Kennedy. And have a great night and enjoy the madness, folks. We're finally here. Good night.